If you're running meta ads and you don't understand how evolution works, you are never going to be able to scale. And you're gonna continue to test your way into poverty forever. Here's what's wild though. Testing creative really only boils down to 3 disciplines. And once you know what they are, you're gonna be able to hit scale. And they're extremely easy to follow, and once you know what they are, I guarantee that it'll be damn near impossible for you not to be able to scale your ad budgets and your revenue. So in this video, I'm gonna cover the 3 disciplines and what they are, exactly how to implement them, and why they're so important. By the way, I'm qualified to talk about this because my name is Hunter and I own an advertising agency where last year we generated $10.9 million for our clients. And all I do every single day is talk about ads and testing ads. And we've, at this point, tested thousands of different ads for our clients. And as we're gonna find out today, testing never stops. Okay, so discipline number 1 is natural selection or Darwinian Theory, which I know it sounds complicated, but it's actually very easy. I learned this very, very early on in my advertising career from my mentor, Charlie Morgan, and it served my clients and my company extremely well. Now, if you went to high school, you've probably heard of Charles Darwin. He's the man that in the 19th century discovered that species are not fixed in the way that they operate in their environments, but they actually continue to evolve through something called natural selection. Okay, now before you click off, because I can already see that you're trying to click off the video because you're like, why the hell is this random marketer telling me about natural selection and Charles Darwin? Here's the thing, if you don't understand this, you will never be able to scale your ads effectively. You'll keep doing things at random and you're gonna continue to see some ads work, some ads don't, and you'll never be able to fully understand why that's happening. One of my favorite quotes is from a guy named Leo Barnett. He's a famous advertiser, and it goes like this: "Any fool can write a bad ad, but it takes a real genius not to touch a good one." And I love this quote because it perfectly touches on the thing that most people get wrong. They have a great ad, they don't recognize the greatness in it, so they continue to mess with it, and eventually all the things that made that ad great die off. Okay, quick lesson on history, and I promise to keep this brief since I know this video is about marketing, so but stay with me. Between the years 1831 to 1836, Charles Darwin took a voyage to the Galapagos Islands. It was about a 5-year voyage. Okay, so on this island, he noticed that there was various different kinds of finches. Imagine these are little finches here. I'm not an artist. So what he noticed is that some of these finches had really thick, strong beaks, while some of these birds had really pointy, not very strong beaks. And he didn't really understand why at first, but when he got back to England, he did some looking. And what he realized is that the birds that had these big thick beaks right here were on islands where there was a lot of nuts. Where over here, these beaks were adapted for the birds that lived on islands where there was cactus. And so what he realized is the birds that had thick beaks had to be able to crack nuts to be able to open them and get food, where the birds with big long beaks were actually having to develop that so that way they could get the nectar out of flowers underneath all the spines of the cactus. So what does this have to do with advertising? So when we're running ads on Meta or Google or TikTok, it doesn't matter where you're running ads, but you're effectively playing God with your ads. Because what you get to decide based on metrics and data, you get to figure out which ads should survive, right? Continue to get money spent on them versus the ones that should be turned off. So let's break this down to make it even clearer. So when we first start an ad, okay, depending on the ad platform, but I think all of them, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a campaign, okay? And what we can think of this is going to be the place on Earth. So you can kind of think of like this as the Arctic versus the Sahara Desert, okay? So kind of in the context of advertising, if we're trying to generate leads and our campaign is set to engagement, our campaign is not going to get leads. And if we're trying to get engagement, but we have leads, then we're gonna get leads and not engagement, right? So we need to make sure that we place our ads in the place on Earth where it's probable to have success. So kind of in biology example, if you put a polar bear in the Sahara Desert, it's probably not gonna do very well. Vice versa, a camel in the Arctic is probably not gonna do very well either, right? So we wanna make sure that our species and our ads are in the right environment or place on Earth. Now, further down from that, we have our ad set. Okay, so this is our ad set. Now, what you can think of this as is kind of like the islands in the Galapagos example. So these are where we're gonna start to get really niche on what kind of species will typically survive in this environment. So in an advertising context, what we could think about this as is this is where we're going to say, okay, we want to target women in our ads. So we're going to tell our ad set, or in this case, our island, to show to women, right? So we're basically starting to say, okay, we have the place on Earth, right? We're trying to get leads. Then we're going to say our island is women, right? We want to show these ads to women. Now, further down from that, then we have our ads, okay? Now, what's going to happen is when you're running ads, you're going to start to put in a whole bunch of ads in here, right? And only a few of those ads are actually going to get any spend towards them. And this is where our job as advertisers gets really fun, because at this point we have to look at the traits of the ones that are getting spend. So what we'll do is we'll take a look and we'll go down here and we'll say, okay, cool. So ad 1, okay, this has a good headline. So this has a good headline. And then over here we have ad number 2. And this one has a good call to action. Now, this is where most people get lost because they don't actually have a good way of tracking, is my headline good? Is my call to action good? And so what happens is they continue to just put new ads into their ad set and continue to test at random. And that's very wrong. And you're never going to be able to actually get out of the testing phase if we're not documenting what works and what doesn't work. And so at the same time, what we're going to do is we have, let's say we have this one here. This is one that didn't work, right? It didn't get any spend towards it. It didn't get the result that we wanted it to. So we take a look at this and we see, okay, cool. This one didn't get a desired result. And the thing that was terrible about this was our primary copy, okay? Or text. So we need to have a very strong documentation of what's working, what's not, and why it's not working. Now, once we find what's working, we can't fall into the trap of saying, cool, we found what works. Let's just make a whole bunch of ads with a whole bunch of stuff that we think is gonna work. What we have to do is say, okay, this headline works, this call to action works, we can go ahead and use that in an ad. But for some reason, our primary text isn't working. And we might also see that our hook isn't working, story isn't working, maybe the editing style's not working. And it's at this point where most people go wrong, because what they'll start to do is they'll just change everything all at once. And that's just the worst way to go about this, because what you have to do is you have to say, okay, our primary text isn't working. Cool. We're going to isolate that variable, right? So we're going to use our headline, we're going to use our call to action since we know those work, but for some reason we don't have a text that's working yet. So we're going to go ahead and change that text until we find one that does work. Once we find one that does work, then you can move on to the hook when we've already said, okay, cool, now this is working, right? So just don't fall into the trap of trying to change everything all at once, because then you'll never know what's working and what actually isn't working. Now, over time, what's going to happen is you're going to start to have an ad pool that starts to look like everything's working. All of your ads will be producing profitable returns for you, and you'll start to think, oh shit, I can go to the beach. This is great. I don't have to work anymore. Wrong. In psychology, or in biology, there's something called the red queen hypothesis. Let me draw my little red queen here. So there's our red queen. Now, the red queen hypothesis states that a species must continue to evolve every single year, month, right, to be able to survive. Now, in the context of advertising, your ad is going to start to fatigue, right? The more someone sees an ad, the less receptive they're going to become of that ad. So it's going to start to fatigue. And once we start to see a whole bunch of really good returns and a lot of different ads, your competition is going to start to become aware of your ads, start to copy that. And so in biology, this is known as something called the red queen hypothesis. But in species, this would be like an example of you're a predator, right? You have sharp teeth. So then your prey adapts to have thicker skin. And if your teeth don't continue to get sharper, you're not going to be able to kill the prey, right? You won't be able to bite through them, right? Or example of, maybe parasites, right? So like you could think of your competitors as parasites. As your competitors start to copy you, if you don't get better faster than they do, then eventually they will actually get stronger than your ads, and your ads will no longer work. So you have to keep testing one variable at a time. You find a good headline, instead of saying, okay, cool, we have a good headline, let's not change anything ever again, we have to test new headlines to see Is there a better headline out there that could possibly get us even better returns? So don't fall into the trap of thinking, well, we have everything that's working, time to go to the beach and hang out. Now, discipline number 2 is trust Meta. Every time I open Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, I see people complaining, going, oh, Meta doesn't work anymore. I'm not making money. And every time I see that, I just think to myself, these people are blaming a $1 trillion company for their lack of results. And the thing I always want to tell them is, do you really think that a $1 trillion company that is Meta would absolutely nuke the results that it gets their clients when they make more money, when you make more money because you spend more on their platform? Or do you think that you in little office clicking buttons on the ads manager is the problem? Exactly. It is not Meta, it is you. You are the problem. You do not understand how that works. So you continue to get charged a crazy tax on Meta so that in you're funding Zuckerberg's yacht because they make changes, and if you're not aware of that, you're just going to continue to get taxed. So here's exactly how to set up your Meta campaign so that way we can work with the algorithms, not against it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set up one campaign, okay? Now, this is very, very simple. If you want leads, you're going to have one campaign for leads. If you want brand awareness, you're going to have one campaign, okay? Same thing for engagement, sales, doesn't matter, right? One campaign per objective. Now, from there, what we're going to do is we're going to have 3 ad sets, okay? Now, these are very easy to understand, okay? Now, each one of these ad sets, we're going to have different things, but the thing I want to articulate is we're going to use ad set budget optimization. And the reason that we do that is I want to be able to control to some degree where we are spending our money. Okay, so let's say we are spending $150 total per day. Then what we'll do is we'll have each one of these ad sets as a $50 per day to begin with. And then over time, we'll have an audience that will start to come out on top, and then we'll scale that one. Now, how do we know what audiences to test? So it's very easy. So in ad set number 1 right here, what we're going to do is we're going to use something called Advantage Plus, okay, or broad is kind of another word for it. And all we're going to do is we're going to maybe tell Facebook about an age range, and we're going to tell them where to show the ads. That's it. Everything else I'm going to leave up to Meta to go and find people who it deems probable to be in our ideal clientele. Here's the thing about Meta, okay? They have alien level technology to target the people that you want to go after. They have millions of data points on different users. One of my favorite stories is there's been a couple, women online that have come forward and said that they were getting delivered ads from Facebook ads about baby clothing and diapers and things that would be probable for a mother to want. And these particular women didn't have kids. So they kept getting served these ads about baby clothing, and all of a sudden, they found out they're pregnant. So Meta can tell if you are pregnant before you even know, right? So trust the algorithm, right? It knows so much about you. It literally probably knows you better than you know yourself. So Advantage Plus is the first thing that we're going to test. Now, next up is interest stack. Okay, so again, we're going to go ahead and put in the age. We're going to put in the location. And what we're going to do is we're going to throw in 5 to 10 behaviors or interests that our audience is probable to be interested in or behaving like, depending on what we're trying to go after. So as an example, let's say that you are a solar panel company and you're selling solar panels to homeowners. What we're going to do is we're going to throw in interests that they're probable to be interested in. So for example, right, we might say, hey, if you're interested in solar, this is something that you're probably interested in. Eco living. Okay, that could be another one. And then one more example here as a behavior, right? Could be global warming, right? Maybe there's somebody who engages a lot online with things related to global warming, right? Which are things that if someone wants to install solar panels, those are things that they're probable to be interested in. Right? So that's just a couple of examples. Obviously, you're going to have to do some research into figuring out what that would be for your company. But this is a good point to say. I am withholding about 50 to 90% of everything that I know about this here on YouTube today that I'm giving out to you for free. However, if you want to work with our agency where we can do a hell of a lot more than this, go ahead and click the link in the description and apply to work with our team. Just a fair warning though, we do only work with companies already grossing $1 million or more every single year. So if you're not there yet, don't even bother applying. Just being honest, we're probably going to reject you. But anyway, moving on. All right, so our third ad set, this is going to be our engaged audiences. Now, again, we're going to have our age, we're going to have our location here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to have anywhere between 3 to 10 audiences that have engaged with us before. So this can be things like website visitors, IG followers, okay, video viewers on your organic content. So, that can be your YouTube channel, Instagram posts, whatever, right? Anybody who's viewed. Those are just 3 examples. Obviously, you want to put in as many people as you can. Any lists of people customer lists of people who have engaged with your company, that's where you're going to just stack them up into one ad set. So that way we can give Facebook kind of a tip on like, hey, these are our customers. These are people who already know who we are. Let's go and retarget those people. Okay. So that's the structure that we're going to use. So we're going to use one campaign, 3 ad sets. And now in each one of these ad sets, we're going to have 25 to 30 ads. And then in there, we're going to have each one of those ads. So each ad, we're going to have 5 primary texts, 5 headlines. Now, obviously, we are not going to write 5 unique different primary texts for each ad. That would be exhausting, and definitely not 5 headlines. What we're going to do is we're going to make one ad, and then we're going to have the 5 copy, 5 headline, then we're going to duplicate that 29 times, and then all we have to do at that point is change the different creatives, okay? So what you're going to end up with is you're going to have 30 ads per ad set with unique ads per ad set, okay? Now, what's going to happen as you start to spend money is you're going to have 1 to 3 ads that are going to get most of this spend. So what's going to happen is you're going to put in all this work, and then only maybe 1 to 3 is actually going to get any spend behind it. And the old way of thinking is that if your ad doesn't get spend, how can we deem it's probable to be a loser? Now here's the thing, in today's Andromeda era, when you're running ads, if it doesn't get spent, it is not a good ad, right? Facebook knows with a very high degree of certainty which ads are probable to get you a result that you want, right? Which is 90% of the time make money. So if it doesn't get spend, it's very likely that that ad will not get you the result that you want. So do not go and separate your ads, your campaign into different ad sets to try and force spend into these ads, because all you're going to do is you're going to create massive audience overlap.
And you're going to absolutely destroy the returns on your ads. You're going to have artificially inflated costs across the board.
So just put in your ads. If they get spend, you'll be able to identify those are the winning ads. Once we have our winning ads, obviously at some point we're going to want to put in new ads to continue testing. So at that point, we are going to duplicate the ad set. Then what we are going to do is we're going to remove the winning ads, and we are going to, like we talked about earlier, all of the traits that we identify, we're going to start to make new variations of those ads, and we're going to plug them back into the ad set, okay? So then what we're going to have is we're going to have our old ad set, which we haven't changed at all, and then we're going to have our new one where we have new creative testing. We're going to start to spend money towards that, and then that's how we can continue our testing of constantly getting better one ad set at a time. Now, moving on to discipline number 3, I want to talk to you a little bit about mindset, okay? I call this the pottery parable, okay? This one's extremely easy to understand, but let me go ahead and show you a demonstration here. So, okay, what we have over here, we have group A, and then we have group B. Okay, so the story goes like this. So there's a pottery teacher, and he has a class, and he separates them into group A, and he separates them into group B. He tells group A, he says, I want you to make 1 pot every day for 30 days. Okay, over here, he says, I want you to make 1 pot over 30 days. Okay, and then he tells group B, he says, make it perfect. So what happens is you have group A, they're making up 1 pot every single day. They know they only have 24 hours to make the 1 pot, so they don't spend that much time trying to perfect, every corner and every edge. And over here in group B, you have them just sitting there every day thinking, how can we make this pot better? Well, what do you think happened at the end of the 30 days? Well, the pottery professor says, okay, cool. We're going to judge all of the pots that are made. So in total, there was 31 pots made. 10 of the best pots came from group A. All 10. Not even one pod, not even the one pod that Group B made. Group B's pod that they spent 30 days perfecting wasn't even in the top 10. So the lesson that I'm trying to articulate here, it is my biggest pet peeve when I am working with a client and they insist on just sitting there and perfecting an ad and making it look so beautiful, because what's going to happen is you're going to get steamrolled by Meta. They demand a high level of diversity. And the only way that we can do that is to produce ads at a very rapid rate. And what's going to happen is as you produce an ad, every consecutive ad that you produce is going to be better than the last one. Where if we spend 30 days trying to make one ad that's perfect, well, now we've only have one ad out there. Meta needs at least 29 more, right? So what is it going to take you, 30 months to get one ad set going? No, right? Record 30 ads in a single day, get your testings, right? You're going to have 1 to 3 ads that are going to get spent anyway. Figure out what works, and then continue to make ads at a rapid rate, right? Because that's what it takes to win. Alrighty, so I think that wraps it up for this video. I hope that this video was helpful. Obviously, we have our 3 disciplines here. If you follow these, I guarantee that you will be able to hit rapid scale. However, if you don't want to deal with any of this and you want to pay our agency to do this for you, you can click the link in the description, okay? And you can apply to work with my team. Now, just to be clear, obviously, we only work with companies doing over $1 million in gross revenue every single year. So if that's not you, don't even bother applying. I'm not going to talk with you. Just being completely honest with you. But if you like this video, I'll see you in the next one. Talk to you soon.